This time on the Highland Woodworker,
I love building furniture, I love making sculpture, and I love teaching.
we visit Wyatt Severs in his Kentucky workshop and learn how a 3D design class shaped his current career, and we'll see his process for making marvelous chairs like this one in our moment with a master.
I'm here to talk about blade tension on your bandsaw and something called the Flutter test.
Plus, are your cuts creating curves? Popular Woodworking Magazine may have a possible solution in this tension-filled tips, tricks, and techniques segment. These stories and more, this time on the Highland Woodworker.
Hello, I'm Charles Brock and I'm a Highland Woodworker. I just love coming to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia. It's where I get all my fine woodworking tools and a great woodworking education. When I first saw Wyatt Severs' work online, I thought I was looking at furniture and sculpture from a wood artist who had spent an entire lifetime mastering the craft. However, Wyatt Severs found his calling as a maker while attending college. Let's meet Wyatt now at his Kentucky workshop and spend a moment with a master. Wyatt Severs.
Chuck.
Yeah, so nice to be here in Murray, Kentucky in your shop. You know, you have a brilliant resume. I was just blown away when, I'm not going to say I discovered you, but you have taught at all the great schools. Have brilliant portfolio. Tell me something about Wyatt Severs. How did you get here and how did you become who you are?
Well, I've been doing this for 12 years. I kind of stumbled upon it when I started at college here at Murray State University. And I was just sort of bumming around after high school and took a 3D design class with a gentleman named Paul Sasso and found the material wood, and it just clicked. Fell in love with it and went on to take another class and became his assistant soon on, and just it's been nonstop adventure from there.
Well, it sounds like everything just kind of clicked, but there's something back in young Wyatt Severs where this kind of all started. Tell us about what you were like when you were a kid.
Well, I grew up in the rural country of Illinois, playing in the woods every day. Just a real love for nature and trees, and I have first memories of woodworking and my father tinkering in his shop and whittling things. At the time, my mother was going to school to be an architect, watching her do architectural drawings in the yard, and just early on became really interested in making and designing things, and just haven't ever stopped.
Yeah. You know, I think that's so important that your family kind of set the stage for you to be an artist or a risk taker. They didn't say, hey, don't go do that, go add up these numbers. I mean, yeah, so you ended up, I think you told me your mom moved.
We moved to Murray when I was about 8 years old so she could finish college. And I grew up here for the most part of my life, and then just naturally after high school started taking classes at Murray State. And I was very heavily into drawing at the time, as I think a lot of artists, that's where they start. And then just taking classes and just found wood as this endless way of possibilities. You know, if you're willing to put in the time and the thought, do the work, the math, you can build basically anything. And any standards, and so I just started finding woodworking every way I could. Yeah.
Well, it's important to have kind of a mentor group around you.
Yes.
It sounds like you found that group, or at least a particular person, and so he set you out on an adventure to work at some of the
a lot of craft schools.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to joke and say I'm a craft school junkie. That's where I got so much of my education, going out, finding masters of the trade. It's a great way to get a big skill set quick, where you've got these people that are perfecting something their whole life, and then they're there to teach it to you in a week, and it's just a great way of learning. So I went, every summer in between semesters, I started off as a work study at Peters Valley, came back as a studio assistant there, got me into Anderson Ranch as a studio technician. Then once I finished college, I went to Aeromont School of Art and Design as a resident, and from there I grew on to Penland, made connections there, and I've been studying and teaching there ever since. When I found woodworking at the craft schools and at Murray State, it really to me was a community that I just related to, of people really caring about materials and carrying on processes that are really forgotten in manufacturing and things. So to me, as much as I love making, I love the sense of community that comes with being a craft artist. So that is a huge part of it, is I have this place where I feel like I fit in and there's great conversation.
What's been the hardest set of skills for you to learn that were necessary skills?
Controlling ambition and not getting in too deep. You know, I shoot for the moon every time, so reeling myself back in and finishing projects that are manageable to actually lead me on to the next one. You know, I've jumped into things in the beginning that I thought I'd knock out in 3 weeks, and 3 months later I'm finally putting the oil on it. So I think, just being reasonable, that's the hardest thing to learn, but I'm getting there.
Well, I think that's a characteristic of the artist too.
Yes.
Artist has to think big first, and then has to whittle it down, or the project becomes whittled down to finally, this is what we can do at this point. As a woodworking artist, what is it that intrigues you the most? What do you like to produce? Is it function, form, or a particular genre of woodworking?
It's really a pretty broad spectrum of all of those things. I love building furniture, I love making sculpture, and I love teaching. With a lot of the sculptural pieces, it is dictated by the piece of wood. I can look at it, look at the growth rings, and get inspiration from the tree as to what it wants to be. That's a real conversation between me and the piece of wood. And then on a completely other side with the furniture, that is a functional object I'm wanting to make that serves a purpose. But I want it to be very aesthetically pleasing and to bring thought to the viewer, to open up your imagination. So I just love doing the really time-consuming furniture, very ornate, over-embellished, to really wow the brain and to just send that viewer on just their own little journey of what is this and what does it mean, and that's really appealing to me. And then I go back to the sculpture where it's bigger, simpler objects. And then I go out and teach the trade as well, and that really influences all the things I do, just keeping the gears turning.
Speaking of keeping the gears turning, woodworking is problem solving. Everything is, okay, I've got this vision, or I'm trying to get here, how do I do it? What kind of problem solving methods do you have?
They're pretty endless. I love to, it's kind of a reverse engineering process for me. That's the way you have to go about a lot of woodworking, is you know what you want to do or what you want to achieve, the product, so you then you start working backwards to see where to start. You know, I work from a life-size drawing as much as possible, figuring out all the steps on paper, and it really helps you foresee structural issues and get it just the way you want it.
Wyatt, I can tell from looking at your work that you've had a foundation in working with bricks.
I have. You know, I actually had a large amount of bricks that I used to play with as a child.
And you still do masonry from time to time.
I do some masonry work. I love brick and mortar. But yeah, it shows up a lot in my work, the brick pattern. I think that is me just kind of paying tribute to our ability to take material and build from it, and the thought that there is this underlying structure behind anything pretty much in the world of its skeleton. of what holds it up and what's behind that, making it possible. So the brick pattern for me is kind of like a sneak peek of what this object is made out of. And it's something that the viewer can understand, so I feel like it brings people to the pieces, make them comfortable, helps them kind of get their own thoughts going about it.
Now, where do you want all this to lead 5-10 years from now? What's your vision?
Well, I mean, my real goal is, I feel like I've achieved it. I just want to keep fine-tuning it, you know, as I grow in the art world, just being able to teach more and influence more. You know, just in the last few years, I've gotten to the place where I'm able to start bringing youngsters in as assistants, giving them the opportunities that were given to me. So just growing as an artist that gets to do this every day for a living is my real goal. And just passing it on, like the way that it has come to me, is to make sure it goes on somewhere else.
It's such a young age, relative to myself, I guess. That is a tremendous goal. People your age usually don't see that as a goal. And that could be the legacy that you leave. Tell us if you've got a legacy that you would like. I'd like to be remembered as.
Oh, you know, it's just nice being somebody that people think highly of, you know, being helpful, and, you know, like my mentors, if I can just be that to somebody else, you know, that's all I can really ask for.
Later in the show, we'll head back to Wyatt's shop, where he shows us his process of building the legs for a chair like this. But first, are your cuts on the bandsaw not tracking straight? Then you might want to try the bandsaw flutter test. Learn all about it when we come back.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a saw-stop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a saw-stop in your shop.
Meet the Bora Centipede, the lightweight and portable workshop table that supports up to 3,000 pounds, stores in a small space for tight shops, and opens into a work table to bring your work to a comfortable height. This makes the perfect companion for your track saw. Comes with X cups and hold downs to secure your work. Upgrade your shop today.
For 35 years, Leigh has manufactured the world's best joinery jigs. From our award-winning dovetail jigs and mortise and tenon jigs, to newer innovations like router table jigs. Easily add strong, beautiful joinery to your woodworking pieces, like half-blind dovetails, box joints, mortise and tenon joints, and through dovetails. Leigh, simply the easiest and most versatile router joinery jigs.
I've been using Forest products for years. You know, they're the maker of the Woodworker 2 saw blade. Gives great cuts on your table saw every time. Now I have a chop master for my miter saw. I have a dense piece of 2x2 walnut, and as you see, it cuts like butter, leaving clean cuts at 90 degrees. Forest, the cuts will make you smile every time. Highland Woodworking has been a leader in woodworking education for more than 30 years. They offer all kinds of woodworking classes year-round, ranging from how to hand cut dovetails and mortises, to how to sharpen a plane or a chisel, how to build a cabinet, a chair, or a bookcase, or how to turn a wooden bowl. There are classes on wood finishing, French polishing, and even antique furniture restoration. For a list of upcoming classes that may interest you, just look in their catalog or go to highlandwoodworking.com.
I'm here to talk about blade tension on your bandsaw and something called the Flutter test, which is a way of setting blade tension that you may have heard about. I thought you'd like to know how it works. But just before I even begin with that, I got to tell you that most bandsaws, this one included, really don't need the Flutter test in order to set tension. There's a scale on the back of the saw with numbers that correspond to the different widths of blades. And frankly, if you've got a nice sharp blade in your bandsaw, that scale works just fine. On the other hand, if you're getting a cut that doesn't want to track straight, or you're resawing something and you end up with a curved cut instead of a straight cut, there's a number of possibilities of where things can go wrong. One is that the tension isn't set high enough, so you can increase it a bit. And two, which is 9 times out of 10, is that your blade isn't sharp. It's hard to tell when they get dull, but that's a sure sign of it. So anyway, let's go into the Flutter test, and we're going to do this without referring to the scale at all. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that you just put the blade on. Tension is set just at a minimal level, so the blade stays on both wheels, and you've tracked the blade by tilting the wheel forward or backwards a little bit so that the blade is centered on the crown of the wheel. And now the next thing we have to do before we start in on the Flutter test is to remove the guides out of the way so that the blade would be free to shake back and forth. And then we're going to lift the upper guide way up so that we have a lot of blade exposed. So every saw is different, of course, about how you set your guides. This style saw uses bearings, and in order to spread the guides apart, I need to loosen the screw over here, and then put the wrench in the socket screw right here and just turn the bearing like this, and they rotate on cams. So as you turn the bearing, it actually spreads itself apart. And there we go. And you want to do the same thing underneath the saw. Those 2 more bearings down there. And next we're going to raise the guide all the way up so we have a maximum amount of blade exposed. And I know, and believe me, this is a little spooky because you have all these sharp teeth exposed, and we're going to be turning the saw on to run it. So just be careful. Don't get your fingers anywhere near this thing at this point. Even though we're going to be turning the tension knob back up here, just stay far away from this. Clear everything off of the saw, and you'll be okay. Okay, are you ready? Here comes the Flutter test. Got the saw plugged in. Close the door. We're going to walk to the other side, far away from the blade. Now remember, I've got the tension set pretty low. So what I'm going to expect when I turn the power on right here is that the blade's going to start to vibrate kind of back and forth. That's what's called flutter. And then what I'm going to do is to start increasing the tension slowly until the flutter goes away. It's really all that simple. So let's start her up and see what happens, shall we? First, press the button. If you look right at the blade, it should be just wiggling just a little bit back and forth. And then what you want to do is to start increasing the tension like this. It's going to take more than a few turns to do this. And walk around and observe the blade dead on like this. Keep looking at it as you turn the tension higher and higher and higher. Just keep going like that until you see the blade is just one solid line, no shaking back and forth anymore. And that's really all there is to it. You've set your tension about right then, and I'll bet if you looked around the back side here on the bracket, the setting would pretty correspond closely to the size blade that you have. And obviously then you want to set your blade guides close to, well, first you lower the post to whatever working height you need it, and then set both blade guides upper and lower in their appropriate place, and you're all good to go.
Coming up, a leg shaping exercise at Wyatt Severs' workshop. Stick around. You're watching the Highland Woodworker. Highland Woodworking stocks a wide selection of Rikon power tools, known for their innovative design and rugged durability. Highland has sold thousands of Rikon's industry-leading bandsaws with sizes to fit every woodworking need, from the compact, affordable 10-inch model to competitively priced 14 and 18-inch models. Shop us also for Rikon's reliable planers, lathes, and professional low-speed grinder, all with an exceptional 5-year warranty. Rikon Power Tools. Whiteside Machine Company has been in business for over 30 years, providing customers with quality router bits. Fine Woodworking Magazine has declared Whiteside router bits best overall and best value when compared against 17 other brands. No matter the router application, they have the type and profile of carbide router bit you need. When you put a Whiteside router bit to work in your shop, it is guaranteed to make you smile. Well, this is the magic moment when my masterpiece, or your masterpiece, comes in contact with Masterpiece Wood Finish Oil. It just comes alive. This is a great piece of wood, and it's going to just look brilliant. Masterpiece Wood Finish causes your masterpiece. If you can't make it to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia, you can shop online at highlandwoodworking.com. They're great at getting what you want to your shop quick. Let Highland's legendary wood slicer resaw blade help make it easy for you to get great results sawing thick lumber into thinner boards. The wood slicer is designed to cut much faster, smoother, and quieter than ordinary bandsaw blades. You'll be amazed at how smooth a surface you'll get with a wood slicer. Its variable tooth pattern greatly reduces noise and vibration. Order a wood slicer from Highland Woodworking for your bandsaw today. Wyatt, I just had to see it after seeing it online. This is a beautiful chair, and I understand that you had a vision to make a chair as comfortable as you could make it.
That is what I set out to do when I designed this chair. Yeah, I took some very tight measurements from my lumbar and my leg height and everything, and drew those out and then designed the chair around it. So
this is the lumbar support.
it is, yeah.
And then your back kind of floats, I guess, in the lower back. And then it's got a wonderful S-curve here.
Yeah, it's got a little lift on your legs, so you don't feel like you're sliding off the front. This chair is designed so when I'm installing the back panel for a client, I can make micro adjustments for different heights. So I can move this lumbar up and down just, a half an inch makes all the difference in the world. So, you know, this one's been catered to me. It's just a display model.
Wow, that is quite an accomplishment. I never thought about being able to move that support. And it's just beautifully book matched here. The veneers, in fact, it's right down the middle, which is great at just centering the eye on the chair and its symmetry. It's just quite an accomplishment. I love all the lines and the curves. This is not easy to do.
No, chairs are a pretty complex build. You know, there's a lot of compound joinery and things in here. So, you know, they have to be really strong to take the movement of a person. You know, everybody wants to lean back in their chair. That's another benefit of this. Back is bolted on, so it actually has some flex to it. It's a chair that you can wiggle around in and not feel like you're going to break it.
Now, you're making a set for a customer right now.
Yeah, the material you have piled up behind you there, that's a solid walnut set for a person.
Well, that's going to be a beautiful set of chairs. Now, there's the drawing, I believe,
let's take a look
that
at
you
it.
started.
Yeah, so I started with the full-scale drawing to figure out all the geometry and everything, and getting the stress points taken care of, and it makes it easy when you have this to go from. I took the time and made this, and now I can take my bevel gauge straight to the piece, take a measurement off of it directly to the table saw, and it's just a direct method. So you're not figuring out angles and math, you're simply following the drawing.
Now, you have a particular philosophy about tools and efficiency.
Yeah, well, I like to think that I do my woodworking the same way it's been done from the beginning of time. I use the most efficient tool I have available to me, the way that's been done since the pyramids.
So use an axe if an axe will do the job.
You got it, yeah. Yep.
And if that doesn't do the job, get a bigger axe.
You got it. Or joiner and planer comes in pretty nice as well.
There you go. All right,
Yeah.
now show us how you make one of these beautiful legs.
This is close to the end product, you know, pre-sanding here. I'm really into my fabrications of jigs and things. Anytime I can add another process to it, why not, you know? So this is the jig that's made this leg basically. It's just from MDF. So it's held together, as you can see, with some dados. And I've shaped one of these and then used a router to match it to the other side. And what I'll do is I'll cut a piece of wood to size. It fits in there. I will trace my line with a pencil, then take it to the bandsaw. One other thing that's nice is, I didn't use it there, but I'll put in these holes, and that can be a really good way to push a piece out that gets stuck in there.
That's just well thought out.
Why, thank you, thank you. So yeah, you can see the lines on this one. So I'll trim close with the bandsaw and then take it to the flush trim bit on the router and clean it up. So I'd like to do that for y'all now, run you through the process.
All right, let's go see.
All right, so our first step is to joint the board. That is to get one side flat. Use my pushing tabs. One thing that I like to make sure that when I'm joining is I always stand in a way that I can move the board safely through the joiner without walking along with it. So you'll see me find a stance where I can take the board all the way through the machine with just a movement of my hips. And I find that to really be a safe way of doing things. All right, Chuck, we have our one side flat and smooth off of the joiner. Now we can take it to the planer to parallel, flat and smooth the other side.
Okay.
All right, so I like to crank it up, bring it in until it just catches, and then I'll pull it back out, turn it back a little bit. So now we have a smooth surface that is also parallel to the other side. So that's how we start to dimension our lumber. And one thing I know you know, Chuck, but some viewers might not, as boards are coming out of the planer, you don't want to pick up on them, but if you'll give it just a little bit of pressure, it'll really help with that snipe.
That's right.
But
yeah,
we have made
the
this
snipe.
Yeah, and I did make sure, you know, I always make my material a little bit longer so I can cut that snipe off. Yeah, so now we will move on to cutting this to length and getting it into the jig to mark out our bandsaw line. And Chuck, one thing that your viewers might find helpful is I like to use these disposable wooden fences, and because I can adjust this into the blade, tighten it up, make a cut, and when I pull that back, I know exactly where my cut's going to be, and I can line that up with a pencil mark.
Sure.
Really invaluable method.
And it provides good support all the way out to the cut.
You got it, no tear out. All right, so now we're ready to go into our jig here. It's a nice tight fit. Got a little hide mallet here.
And the tight fit's important.
It is.
You don't want it moving around when it's going through the shaper over there.
That is true. All right. So I'm going to mark a pencil line here now and then pull it out. All right. So this is when these holes will really come in handy to push that out.
Yeah.
Like you said, you want a tight fit. Now we have our pencil line. We'll take it to the bandsaw.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we've removed 90% of the material. Now we're ready for the router.
Okay.
All right, back to our jig. Flip and repeat.
Yeah, just a nice clean cut.
Nice and clean.
Yeah, that is nice.
Just there you go.
So where will you pick up as far as sanding that?
I will take that back to, this is a good clean cut. I'll actually start that at 180.
I see.
Yep, and I'll go down to 320 to 400, then I'll wet sand it.
Yeah, very
Yep,
nice.
So I'll
So now you're going to just
I'm gonna
rotate
flip,
it.
I'm gonna rotate and do the other side.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back in. We'll do the foot just by hand with a bandsaw and a sander.
Okay.
Yeah.
as far as orientation, that is one of the harder pieces. A leg like that is one of the harder pieces to get the right orientation on.
It will twist your brain around. Yeah, it does.
Because you've got to think negative and positive there.
All right, so we're ready for our second cup there. We can see it's starting to take shape.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the bandsaw. Now my main objective here is to make sure that I'm completely stable on the bed. So before I start my cut, I want to make sure that I can be firm and solid on the bed, which we're good. Now we're ready for business again. There's a little screw here that I tighten and loosen to make sure that is good and firm in there. All right, back to the router. That's the kind of fit we want. There we have it. Uniformed every time.
Well, that's great. And then all that's left is cutting this off on your bandsaw and some sanding.
And a lot of sanding.
Yeah, oh yes. But it's a beautiful contemporary leg.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Chuck.
Dovetailing requires lots and lots of tools and lots of headaches. Leigh Tool Company can replace all this with their new TD330. Let's find out about it now.
For over 35 years, Leigh has built a reputation of quality and innovation that continues with the Leigh TD330 through Dovetail Jig. This through Dovetail Jig is a cost-effective and easy-to-use jig for routing through dovetails with the patented Leigh joint fit. Through dovetails are eye-pleasing, extremely strong, and can be used for a wide variety of projects. With the TD330, you can route boards up to 12 7/8 inches wide, and you can join boards up to 13/16 of an inch. Even boards with different thicknesses. To ensure you get great results and a perfect fit, the TD330 includes matching router bits and the Leigh E-bush guide bushing, and as an added bonus, it can also be used on your router table. The TD330 through Dovetail Jig, quality and precision at an affordable price. All Leigh products carry a full 5-year warranty, the best in the business. Pick one up at Highland Woodworking or highlandwoodworking.com today. Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today. That's all the time we have for the show today. But
Check us out on social media and come back to see us next time on the Highland Woodworker.